And with that, we welcome in CBS Sports football analyst Emory Hunt and CBS Sports college football writer Shahan Jayaraja. And y'all, that was, as we were talking about off camera, a very Nebraska way, right, to end the game because it looked like they were going to give it away. And then Sorsby says, actually, I'm going to give it to Mr. Hartzog. Emory, I'll start with you. What did you take away from the way Nebraska was able to get out of there with a W, even though it was very tight?
It all counts in the end as a win, right? So you find a way to get that W, and they found a way to get it done. Regardless of how it looked, Nebraska won the ball game. You like some of the things they did. They ran the football rather well, I thought, at times. Against Cincinnati, the defense stepped up in certain areas. They almost collapsed on the back end, but at the end of the day, they made the play that was there to be made. A play doesn't care who makes it. It just wants to be made, and they made the play at the end.
Yeah, I think it's such a weird way for that game to end just because, you know, again, Cincinnati has the ball. They get into field goal range. I get the idea of taking a shot, but I don't necessarily think it was necessary. And if you're Brendan Sorsby in that situation, you have to have better awareness of the field. Yeah, if you have that matchup that you like, I understand taking it, but you also have to understand you're already in field goal range. You already have overtime almost guaranteed at that point. If you don't have perfect situation, you got to throw the ball away. And ultimately, it costs them big. And this was an issue that Cincinnati ran into for so much of last season, most famously in their game against Pittsburgh last year, where they blow a 27-7 lead in the fourth quarter in a 28-27 loss. But this is something that has really plagued them under Scott Satterfield. They have to find ways to move forward from this because this roster is too good to waste.
I absolutely agree with you, Shahan. Now, when we talk about the QB position, Dylan Raiola with his idol in the stands and Patrick Mahomes, right? He goes 33 of 42, 243 yards, 2 TDs. Shahan, how would you evaluate his play as he looks to get off to a better start than the way he ended it in his freshman season?
Well, I think it was an encouraging start to the season. There's no doubt about it. I thought that his receivers played really well, and he seemed to have a pretty good connection with them as well. We saw, you know, especially on some of those touchdown throws, we saw some big-time performances, big-time throws, big-time catches that we did not see from this offense last season. But I will say as well, a lot of the stuff that Dylan Raiola took, especially in the second half, was underneath stuff. He did a good job in the second quarter, I think, of getting the ball out and downfield. They got a little bit more conservative. Now, I think part of that was Cincinnati's game plan to play a 3-safety shell, keep the game in front of them, but there were a lot of checkdowns, a lot of shorter passes. I'd love to see them mix it up a little bit more. I'd love to see them try to create more shot opportunities for him. But overall, I give him a solid B+.
Yeah, Shahan touched on it. Like, that's the part I'm looking forward to seeing from him is the growth and more variety within his game. Taking case in point, the touchdown throw, the last one he threw was a nice velocity throw, nice little sleight of hand, and boom, got the ball out quickly. We also saw him scramble a little bit more so in the second half. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that. I want to see him going more at the intermediate to deep levels of the field. And I want to see him avoid those negative plays. A lot of times I felt like he held the ball a little bit too long, took some unnecessary hits, took a sack or two in that situation. But as long as he's able to show the mobility and show the different arm angles and touch the intermediate to deep levels of the field on a more consistent basis, I think that bodes well for him in the sophomore season. I know folks want to calm down the Patrick Mahomes kind of comparisons, and justifiably so. But right now, let him play like a sophomore. Let him get better gradually over the course of the weeks, and we'll see what Nebraska is, where they're at on the opposite end.
Yeah, he's not going to be a finished product
no.
week one, right? There's time. You have to give these guys grace. Obviously, there are high expectations, but it doesn't happen overnight. Now, Boise State, ranked number 25, right, coming into this season, Shahan, they get smoked on the road, man, 34-7. What did you make of the way they just didn't show up in a game that I expected them to win? And clearly, I didn't know what I was talking about because USF said, yeah, we got a point to prove, and they did it in convincing fashion.
I think that the most disappointing part for me was the play of their offensive line. They did a really poor job of protecting Maddox Madsen, and I thought that you saw that kind of come through across the game. Early on in the game, Boise State was doing a very good job on the defensive side of the ball. I think that they were making some good decisions on offense, but it's just these little miscues and moments, right? It's a sack taken there, it's one or two fumbles here or there, and things started to snowball from there. I don't think this team, at least in week one, is as resilient as the team that we saw last year. And I want to be clear about it. Boise State returned a lot of production. A lot of the best players on their team are back, even if Ashton Jeanty is now in the NFL. But this was a team that once they started to get down, started to make more mistakes. Their mistakes started to compound on each other. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you started to see that secondary really struggle to tackle. I think that's a huge issue for this team. And they have a defensive head coach, Spencer Danielson. I know that's not acceptable for the way that he wants to put his team together. So I think that they've really got to step back, realize that this is a new year, this is a new team. You can't just carry over what happened last year, and they're going to have to grow a lot on that side of the ball.
South Florida out Boise State, Boise State, right? And when you think about what makes Boise State that team that we all kind of grew up loving and watching and rooting for, was that they were able to win at the point of attack. They beat you with the surprise, and they were able to play really sound, fundamentally sound defense, and they showed up in certain situations on the road in a big spot. This was a big spot. In fact, they failed at all three parts because they got beat by a big play on special teams, a fake punt. They couldn't run the ball at all, 3.2 yards a carry collectively, and they turned the ball over 3 times. So all of that was the reason why the score looked the way it looked. And when you think about South Florida just coming in and beating them at their own game, beating them at the point of attack, playing a little bit more disciplined when things were shaky in the beginning of the ball game, this was not the Boise State team that everyone thought that they were going to see coming off of them making that playoff run.
Speaking about the playoff run, a lot of people going into this season expected, and still maybe expect, that Boise State would be that Group of 5 team to make the playoffs. So now with this loss, and it wasn't just a close loss, it was a blowout loss. What other Group of 5 teams could be seen as winners here on Thursday night?
Well, I have a couple written down, right? One, Navy, because I feel like Navy is one of those teams that, one, no one wants to face. They have a fantastic quarterback in Blake Horvath, who is a quadruple option because he could throw the football as well. You also have James Madison. James Madison brought in a lot of transfers coming in. And so this team is stacked on both sides of the ball. But the true team that America wants to see in the postseason is the University of Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns.
My goodness.
Hear me out, and when I tell y'all this, I am not BSing you guys. This is what's going to happen, right? The only team on that schedule that strikes the fear in my heart, because I know the Raging Cajuns are going to play tough, it's the Missouri game. So they have Eastern Michigan. We're about to bake rice. And then after that, you know, it's Missouri, and then it's the Sun Belt Conference schedule. 2 best teams in the Sun Belt Conference are James Madison and Louisiana. So we'll see which one comes out. But this is big for Navy, JMU, and America's team, Louisiana.
Yeah, definitely opening the door for some of those teams. Now, Shahan, with the Bulls, right, what do you see? What do you foresee for their future? Can they have a really successful season? I know they have some tough games coming up, but perhaps they could string some wins together and make this a really year to remember.
Well, they play Florida, they play Miami. Those are going to be really tough performances. But here's the other piece of that too, right? Is when you play big games, if you play them well, they also are opportunities to build your case on the national stage. If they were to pull an upset in one of those games, I mean, even last year, you look at Boise State playing Oregon close, even though they lost the game. It just helps to build your case on the national stage. And so when I look at South Florida, this is a team that on the defensive line looks like a totally different animal than what we've seen in the past couple of years. I was very impressed by the way that they manhandled a quite good Boise State offensive line that obviously has some issues now. But I think that the other piece as well is we have a fully healthy Byron Brown. It's been 11 months since he suffered a season-ending injury, but he looked mobile, he looked good. You started to see some of this momentum come together. I loved the addition of Chaz Nimrod for them. I thought he was a tremendous piece in that upset over Boise State. So this is a team from the American Conference that I think is definitely going to have a chance to look forward and be at the forefront of that playoff conversation.
South Florida with their first win over a top 25 opponent since 2016. Very impressive for them. Now, we talked about winners. We also have to talk about losers. Emory, who was your biggest loser of the night here on Thursday.
And you know what's funny about this? Because I love watching folks go at it on social media. But you know who can't talk right now?
Who?
The Big Ten. Because it's been Big Ten, SEC going back and forth, right? Who has a better conference? Who's stronger? Nebraska barely got past Cincy. Minnesota barely got past Buffalo. Rutgers barely got past Ohio, not Ohio State. Wisconsin barely got past Miami, which is located in Ohio, not the one in Florida. So all these Big Ten teams struggled in their opener.
But they shut him out. Wisconsin shut him out 17-0. What are you talking about?
They were 18.5-point favorites, so they didn't cover. Good teams win, great teams cover. So when you think about the Big Ten, and we always jokingly talk about how teams speak about the strength of conference, blah, blah, blah. And really what they're talking about is the top half of the conference. They're not talking about these teams right here on the screen that have to do their job to uplift the rest of the entire conference. And the reason why I'm saying this is a loser for the Big Ten, because we're on the cusp of going to 9 conference games they're talking about. So that means, hey, the rest of y'all got to get it together. And so we'll get the SEC's turn when Mississippi State gets out there against Southern Miss, and that game looks kind of funky. You know what I'm saying? So it's up to the Big Ten, these bottom part of the conference, to start dominating these opponents. Kudos to the other opponents, but at the end of the day, if you didn't dominate, it makes the rest of the conference look weaker than it's perceived to be.
Right, because it's about style points, especially
really
with the college football playoff. Okay, so Shahan, Emory believes the Big Ten, he's discussed it with them, right? At least the bottom half. What about you? Who was your biggest loser from Thursday night?
Well, and I'll piggyback off of Emory. I mean, when you see the Big Ten advocating for 7 playoff spots, it's because of nights like this, right? But I'm going to pick out one of those teams, and that's Wisconsin. Wisconsin had a miserable day for a lot of reasons. One, their starting quarterback, Billy Edwards, went out, not even while running himself non-contact. After a handoff, he limped off the field. Didn't come back for the rest of the game. The reports after the game seem all right. It doesn't seem like it's going to be anything too long-term. But to lose your transfer quarterback in the first game of the season, brutal situation. On top of that, it was 3-0 at halftime against Miami of Ohio. They didn't score more until the fourth quarter. Eventually, they pulled away to 17-0. But this is a new look team, new offensive coordinator. They tried to go back to kind of being that physical run-based team, and it did not work at all against a MAC opponent, and not necessarily one of the better MAC opponents on your schedule. So this was a really disappointing night for me. This is year 3 for Luke Fickell. He had to come through in some sort of way. I mean, last year they missed a bowl game for the first time since 2001. This is a pivotal year for this program. This is a pivotal year for that coaching staff. And as far as I'm concerned, the first test was a failure.
SEC's laughing right now, but they won't. Listen, Mississippi State, Southern Miss gonna get them, and then you also have all these other teams on the back end. Kentucky, like, y'all laughing now, but Mad Day coming on Saturday.
Hey, we're going to see.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to see. Put the pads on.
Mostly just those two, by the way, also.
Right.